Okay, so we're live.
Yay, live. Hi.
Welcome. I'm so happy to be interviewing right now. I'm really excited for this interview. So before we jump right into the questions, would you like to introduce yourself a bit? I'm sure most people watching this already are familiar with your art, but just tell us a bit about yourself and.
Yeah, I'm Lord Gris on the internet. I am an illustrator. I live in Portland, Oregon. I don't know what else beyond that.
So I've actually been following your art for like a while now. So
Ah,
I'm a huge fan. I absolutely love your art. So I'm sure everyone out there is just as excited, probably even like super excited for this book. But I'm certain like you are extremely excited more than anyone because you know what is going into this book. You're the one who knows like all the efforts you put into this book. So can you just tell us a bit what we can be expecting, maybe
yeah,
tutorials?
yeah.
Give us a bit, like
The
secret just between us.
it has like three main sections, I would call it. The first one is sort of like the story of how I became an artist and how my style developed over time. And the second section will be like just a compilation, like a gallery compilation of images. And then the third section is tutorials, which is very special because I don't normally make tutorials. I've always been very elusive about those. And there's some really cool ones in there. My favorite is probably the one on character design and like designing a pose.
I also read like from your Instagram post that you're doing some acrylic paintings. I am
Yeah.
personally really excited for that because I've always wanted to get into acrylics and I really love how I think you also mentioned how you love to like your style to transition between all the different media you work in. So like your digital and your acrylics because it's quite amazing how you can do that. Like when I look at your acrylic paintings, I literally think like those are done on like an iPad or something. They literally look digital. But you mentioned you're going to have tutorials there. Can you talk a bit more on the tutorials, how they're going to be like?
Yeah, the acrylic one was really fun and I was really happy to be making that one. Just because I learned acrylics from somebody that I looked up to. Like
Mm.
we share an art studio now, but I literally like met him online and I was like, I love the way you paint. Will you teach me? And he gave me just like a couple, it wasn't even that many things and it wasn't even that in depth, but those couple of tips just helped me take acrylics from this thing that was like really frustrating. And I was like, I don't understand how to make this medium work for me. It dries so fast. It's so irritating. To something that I could actually utilize. And I was able to take all those tips he gave me and then stick those in the book, along with things that I've learned myself along the way. And just kind of go over everything from like prepping the board all the way to putting the varnish on at the end. It just covers like the whole spectrum of things, which is hopefully really cool. I'm excited for people to learn that.
Definitely, definitely. That, a lot of beginners tend to feel very intimidated when they're trying to go into a new medium. I know I do. And, especially things like mediums and varnish and canvas. I honestly so like I have no idea how to go about starting acrylic. So I'm sure that is going to be really helpful to a lot of people. Okay, so the book is basically about your art journey. Can you tell us a bit how you got to where you are? Like, how did you get into art, and what was your journey? Just a bit about your life.
Yeah. I think my art journey, sometimes I read people's stories and it's very like they were set up from when they were young. They're like, oh, my parents, put me in art tutoring and I went to this nice art college and they learned all the things. My journey was very rocky. I always loved art. And ever since I was a kid, I was always like, I'm going to be an artist. When I was applying to colleges, I only applied to art schools. But when I actually got into college, I felt so out of place because I'd had no art education up to that point. I really thought like, I'm so excited. I've been waiting my whole life to finally learn something about art, and I've never had a chance to, and I'm going to learn it. And I show up there, and everyone at school had already been learning about art, for the last 18 years, and they knew so much. And so I was expected to know all these things coming in that I didn't know. I'd never touched digital tools. I didn't know the first thing about composition or complementary colors or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I already felt way behind. And then I really felt like I wasn't an artist when I got there. Just people were so avant-garde with their art, or their ideas are so conceptual or so deep or nuanced or interesting, like the kind of stuff that you'd see in like very refined art galleries. And I felt like this little kid because I came in there being like, I don't know, I just want to draw pretty ladies. That's what I like. That's what makes me happy. And I could just like, people would like turn up their noses at that kind of art. I never told people that's what I wanted to do, but I'd see them see it and I'd be like, oh, that kind of art's so basic. And I was like, yeah, that's so lame. Hate it. For me, I made it 3 semesters before I just was like, I don't think I'm a real artist. This is like killing me. It's like sucking my soul out. I'm trying to change my art style to be this thing that's all deep and sophisticated, and I'm not enjoying it. And it really just kind of came to blows when me and this teacher, he overheard me say something. I don't fully remember what happened anymore, but he overheard me saying something, and he just started yelling at me in front of the class, being like, you're so uncreative. You're wasting your time being here. You're wasting your money. You're wasting my time. It was one of those awkward moments where he's shouting and everyone else is like staring at their feet. And I'm just sitting there like, what did I do? Why are you so mad at me right now? And I went in the bathroom and started crying about it. And after that, I dropped out of school and I quit art for years. I was like, I'm not an artist. I just want to draw dumb, pretty ladies. That's not what real artists want to do, And I didn't touch it. I tried other things. I tried to start a fashion blog. I tried to write a book. I kept trying things. I was like, I'm going to find my way in life. I'm going to find my path, because, I thought it was art, but it's not. And it just, those several years where I wasn't making art, I was definitely sad, for sure. I missed it. I think it was like such a core part of me, and I buried it and I rejected it. And I was like, no, but there was always this part of me that was like, I miss drawing. I've been doing it my whole life. I miss it. I want it back. For me, it was sort of being inspired by seeing the rise of social media, which allowed people to give power to artists, which is really cool. Because before, you had to get hired by a company, or you had to get an art gallery to accept you. And that's how you have a career as an artist, But people started posting their silly, girly art on social media, and tons of people are just like, I like this. I want to see more of this. I want to follow this. And seeing that there are people out there, like there's a real audience out there for it. And I was told, oh, you can't do anything with that kind of art. I was blown away. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I got so empowered.
Yeah, that was honestly so amazing to hear, because everyone sometimes thinks this journey to becoming an artist is so easy and always so straightforward, but like everyone goes through certain journeys and everyone's story is different. And some people had to quit, then find the love again, and actually that works more than just having to force yourself into this ideal that people have created. I know that's not art. Art is all about expressing yourself and doing what you love.
Yeah.
So it's really like amazing to hear your journey and how you got from there to here. I'm like, right now we're all like, you're launching your first book, and that's like,
yeah, I'm so excited.
That's so amazing. I also want to ask, what were the inspirations? You've always loved drawing, but like, I'd like to know a bit more. What were the inspirations, maybe like, in the dawn of social media? Who were the artists maybe that you saw pop up on social media that got you like, oh yeah, like I want to do this, that made you get that joy for art back?
The artist that made me get the joy for art back specifically is a painter named Happy D Artist.
I love her.
Yes, she's amazing. She's just,
amazing. Yeah.
I love her beautiful, glowing ladies. And I was like, she's like, I literally, I remember watching her explode because I had a friend that knew her, And so he linked me her social media back before it was like nothing. And he's like, my friend just quit her day job to become a full-time artist. You should follow her. So I followed her and I was like, oh yeah, I like her paintings. These are neat. And then I just watched it explode. And I was like, I could do this. I draw like this. And
Yeah.
that was an inspire, like it took me a while to actually like figure out how to actually draw daily and do that, and that was a whole different sort of inspiration, but just feeling the hope that like it's possible was so important.
Yeah, I really get it. When you see someone out there doing something similar to you that you know you've been told you can't do this, and then you're literally watching someone else do that, it's like, no, I can't. It's like, right? That's really cool to hear. Okay, so what of your inspirations outside like artists? Like, I know you play video games, what are some of your other inspirations?
Such a hard one.
Take your time. No, you can take your time,
I
honestly.
never know what to do with this question because I just feel like inspiration just comes from like literally the most random thing. I'll be
Yeah.
walking around, I'll be like at the grocery store, like literally I have this pineberry girl. Do you know that one? She's like
Yes.
inside a little white strawberry. That came
Yeah.
from, I was at the grocery store and I saw a shampoo bottle that had a pineberry on it. And I was like, that fruit is so cute. I want to make
Right?
art out of that, and it just like the most random things will happen. And then you're like, I have an art idea. And there's never sort of a go-to thing where you can like pull up inspiration. But video games is definitely like a big one. Just when I was a kid, I didn't have like much access to the internet or TV shows or art books or anything like that. But my brother, he's kind of a nerd. He's my older brother, and he loved video games. And he subscribed to a magazine. It's not around anymore, but it was cool back in the day. It's called Nintendo Power. So we'd get this Nintendo Power magazine every month, and it had sections with like concept art in it. And it even had a section at the front of the magazine for a while where people sent in fan art that they drew. And I loved that section because I could see drawings that other kids had made. And I'm like, whoa, this is so cool.
Yeah.
So, but I just would pour over all the like the concept art in this magazine and be like, I'm gonna draw like this someday. I want to make cool character art. There'd be all these warrior ladies with mecha people and their big weapons and robo arms, and I was like, it's awesome.
You're launching this art book. I'm sure it wasn't the easiest journey. A lot of people just we glance, like we don't notice all the struggles that goes behind creating a physical product. I'm sure you probably have experienced a lot of ups and downs with your online shop. So what are some of the like struggles that you faced, as well as like the like high moments when creating this art book?
A lot of it I would say was just sort of time management based, because I was trying not to like drop my normal job. I'm like, okay, keeping up with social media, I've kind of described as like riding a bicycle. You sort of got to pedal a certain amount or it's going to fall over, so I'm like, okay, I got to keep outputting regular content, and I got to be on top of my Patreon, and I got to be on top of shop drops and managing my emails and doing all this stuff, but then also making this book content on top of that. So I knew that going in. I was like, this is gonna like kill me while I'm doing it. I'm pretty much not gonna see anybody for a year, and I'm gonna be very tired and like have probably at least 3 meltdowns where I cry and I'm like, I can't do it. It's a disaster. Which did happen. But I knew it happened, so I was ready for it. But the making of the content, writing my personal journey turned out to be harder than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be super easy. I'm like, it's my story. I know the whole way, but writing it in a way that was compelling, it didn't feel like I was oversharing, but also not like I'm undersharing. That was kind of like emotionally like hard. Actually, I was surprised by that. And the tutorials were a lot of fun to make. Actually, I was like, maybe I should make more of these in the future. But I never. Sometimes you don't even realize what people don't know. But there's been like a few times where like me and a friend have hopped on a call, like an internet friend, and we're working on art together. So we're like sharing our screens. And they're just like, how do you do this thing with hair? I'm like, oh, that's so easy. And I like show them, they're like, what? Like, I wish I knew this. You're a wizard. And I was like, is this the kind of stuff people want to know? Like, just that?
Yeah, definitely. That's, people tend to like assume, like, it happens a lot. You think everyone just knows this, and then you like, people are like, oh, how'd you do that? And you're like, this, and you're like, what? Didn't you know this? Like, especially when you're like working digitally, maybe you did a particular like trick or something, that maybe on Photoshop, and you just assume everyone knows this, and then no one literally knows it. And you're like, what? Like, I
Like,
thought
it's just
everyone
a
knew
sub
this.
menu.
You talked about like the moments when you felt like, breakdowns and everything. That must have been very difficult. How did you kind of pull yourself out of that moment? Because, as artists, we, like you said, we're constantly told to post in this era of social media. Sometimes we just feel like at our lowest, and we feel like we want to give up, and like everything's so hard. How do you pull yourself up of that mindset?
Um, I'm sort of the opinion that you just kind of got to let it out a little bit. Like, I know that if I just cry about it, I'll feel better at the end. So my boyfriend is very nice, and I'm gonna cry about this right now. Just having a meltdown. He's like, okay, and he'll sit with me through it. And usually there's some mac and cheese that happens at the end of that. Uh, I'm like, I'm gonna eat some garbage. I'm gonna cry about this. And we're gonna like once I get it out of my system, I'm like, okay, we're going back to work. It's gonna be okay. We got this. But I
Definitely.
also think I think taking breaks is important and can be really hard not to, because you're just in this like zone where you're like, I don't have time to take a break. There's so much to do. But the more you start stressing yourself out, like this is the problem with art. It shows up in your art. People can tell, like, your figures get
Yeah.
stiffer, or things seem rushed, or there's something off about the face because you're stressed out, and you like, it's like you have to maintain this calm state when you're creating. So unplugging, especially if you're like, I don't have time, I just got to crank it out, is so valuable. I love Oregon. I love where I live. It's so beautiful here. And I grew up hiking the trails with my parents. Like, that was our family activity. Like, almost every week we'd hike a different trail and see a different waterfall, and to just be out there in nature, and to just like be surrounded with beauty, and to get that exercise and be with people that you love. It just kind of helps you zoom out a little bit and be like, okay, if this goes poorly, it's not the end of the world, and you come back feeling a lot more refreshed. And I think that that's just so important.
Yeah, definitely. Taking breaks. I think like social media has honestly made the rest of the world like just have this idea that taking breaks is like a crime, when it really
Yeah.
isn't. Everyone needs to, you know, take
Well,
a
it's
break.
hard
And
because the algorithms will like almost punish you if you take a break. And so you're almost in this like abusive relationship with your social media, and you have to like have boundaries with it and be like, no, I'm taking a break.
yeah, yeah, I totally get it. It's a constant battle. Hopefully, Instagram, just everything just works out eventually, because it feels like it's getting worse every day, but we just have to like hope that eventually, everything works out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of rounding up right now, and I've really been enjoying this conversation with you so far. I just want to ask, what would you tell, your past self? Like you said, you felt so like you had a moment when you decided to give up on arts, and you're just done. What would you tell your past self like now? Because I'm very sure your past self probably didn't assume that you'd be where you are today. It's amazing. So what would you look back and tell your past self, and what would you also tell artists, who are starting off their journey, or who feel, or who are like at the same position as you were once back then?
Yeah. There's so many things I want to tell my past self. I mean, that's like such a huge reason why I even wanted to make this book in the first place. Like, it felt a little fateful for me, because at the start of last year, 2021, I was driving around in my car and I was thinking like, God, there's so many things that I wish I could tell young me. And there's so many things I wish I could tell young artists right now. Is like, I want to make a book, and I even wanted, I was like, I think I want to work with 3dtotal because they've made some books for other artists that I really like. And within like a week of thinking that, like 3dtotal reached out to me and they're like, hey, you ever thought of making a book? And I was like, wait, I'm making a book. I'm going to go for it. Let's do this. Because I remember being like, even before college, when I got really discouraged, I remember being in high school, and this was back when like the art platform was like DeviantArt, and looking up to artists on DeviantArt. I loved Loish so much.
I love her art. Beautiful.
So beautiful. She's amazing. But yeah, I would see these artists online and I'm like, they're so far and beyond me. They're so incredible. I'm never going to be that good. I'm never going to get there, and I would have things I'd think about, like if I was to make my art into a job, what would I do? Is like, oh, I love video games. I'd love to work on video games, but I was like, I could never be as good as these people who work on video games. And every time I told myself I can never do that, I stopped myself before I even tried. I just like, I didn't even go down that path because I was like, oh, I could never. And that was the biggest hindrance. Like I struggled to ever draw regularly, or practice properly, because I was like, I could never be good enough. I could never be good enough. And I wish like if young me knew that I would have an art career in the future and knew where I was now, like if I had that confidence, just I was like, oh, I know where I'm going, I would have practiced like crazy every day. I would have worked super hard because I would have been like, I know I can't fail. So I'm going for it. And I often feel behind. Like, I feel like there's people, half my age that draw way better than me. And I'm like, oh, if only I'd started practicing when I was younger, but I was too busy telling myself I couldn't do it. So why try? And what really kickstarted my art career in the first place was saying, like, I'm going to approach this like I'm going to succeed. I'm going to approach this. I mean, it literally was, and I think I've said this in a interview that's online from like 6 years ago, but I was literally playing a video game called Dark Souls. I love
Dark Souls.
Yeah, Dark Souls. This was back when I had quit art for several years. There was so much going on. I had a chronic illness, so I couldn't work. So I was pretty much just stuck in my house all the time. I was very, 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 very depressed. There was a lot of rough things going on in my life. And I was just sitting there playing Dark Souls for like hours. I was like grinding, like killing enemies over and over to level up. And I was like, I'm so bored right now. I was like, I'm not even having a good time. Like, why am I doing this? And it dawned on me. I used to think I was like a lazy person. Because I used to be like, oh, I don't draw regularly. I'm so lazy. But I realized I was like, I'm not unwilling to do the work. Clearly, I'm willing to sit here and grind slimes for like 5 hours to level up, even if it's not fun. I was like, I just feel hopeless. I just feel like even if I do the work, it won't go anywhere. But I was like, that's silly. Think about it. Like, if you exercised every day, there's no risk that you won't like get healthier. You won't get more fit. Yeah. Like, it's guaranteed. If you do the work, the success is guaranteed. And I was like, what if I approached my art that way? In the same way that I approach leveling up in a video game, because that's the comfort of a video game. If you kill the enemies, you get the experience and then you level up. I was like, what if I draw the things and get the experience and level up? And so from that point on, I don't know why, it just like, it clicked in my head. I was like, I'm going to do this. And I started drawing every single day. And I wish young me had that mindset, but that's the mindset I tell everyone to have now. Just approach it with a little bit of faith and like the guarantee that if you keep doing it, like, it will lead somewhere. Like, that is a path you can go down, and don't stop yourself before you start. Because there's so many kinds of art in the world. Like, it doesn't have to be hyper realism. Like, it doesn't have to be insane. There's people that make careers out of like little scribbles that they make, little doodles, like whatever it is that you love. I think that when you embrace the art that you love, and then you have to put in, the hours to truly like master that. But when you master the art that you love, you will be able to build like a niche following around it. There's always going to be people out there that will love the weird thing that you make. And it can be hard because the internet can be a difficult place. There's a lot of opinions coming at you saying like, oh, you should draw this way, or you shouldn't draw this way, or nobody wants to see this, or this is right and this is wrong. And people get all confused and they start changing their style based on what they think they're supposed to do, instead of like, what do you love? What makes you happy? And always remembering to like ask yourself that question daily. Am I making what I love? Am I making what I enjoy? Am I mastering that? Or am I trying to cater to what I think people want? Because I think anytime you're trying to cater, your art's going to suffer for it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's like you just have to like realize, like think deep and ask yourself, what do I want to do? And not for social media, not for Instagram, not for likes. Like if the internet didn't exist, what would I do that would make me happy? What art would I create? And I think, what I mean, that's where we all started off from, like when we're kids. No one told us, oh, don't do this, don't do that. We all did what we wanted, and that's where the joy of creating art came from. And I think we
Yes,
all just have to remind ourselves about that.
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Oh, well, Chris, this interview was so like informative. I'm so glad that we could talk today. I really do
Thanks for
appreciate
talking
you
to me.
taking time out of your busy schedule. I'm really looking forward to you looked at my collection.
Oh,
Like,
thank you.
I'm just so excited. And I'm very certain that everyone is as excited, and definitely sure this is going to be a really successful Kickstarter. Like I'm certain. I'm certain.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you
once
for
again.
talking to
This was
me.
a pleasure meeting you. Definitely. Okay.